People that know me are gonna be like, this channel's been up 3 months and she's already shot her wad on alien shit. Or as much of a wad as I can muster. I've actually had the Alien 3 Genesis and Game Gear games in my possession for more than a decade with no way to play them, because I'm that cool. So the morning I ordered the Mega SG, since we're going through this chronology here, that's when I ordered Shadowrun, and that's going to be a Chop Shop episode. And I got Outrun 2019, Virtual Pinball, Lemmings 2, and Zillion, which I've already covered. And then I got Spy vs. Spy, Alien Syndrome, and the Master System Alien 3. Alien 3 is my second favorite Alien movie, so that's why you're going to have to put up with this. But the notion of which Alien 3 video game is the best is a little more murky. The Game Boy version is the Dark Horse candidate, a somewhat clumsy but charming pseudo-adventure RPG mishmash thingy by a studio called Bits, who got their mitts on a bunch of licenses. They made some of the non-arcade Terminator 2 games and ultimately blessed us with R-Type DX for Game Boy Color. The Super NES version is sort of considered the best. It's the closest to Metroid as Alien games got until that DS one, credited to Probe and released by LJN, but actually programmed by Nick Jones under the name Spearsoft. Sega sort of got screwed though, because instead of the port of the Super NES version, they got a hobbled up make of the side-scrolling action-y 8-bit game. That action-y side-scroll is what we're talking about today, and true to form, I prefer the Master System one. In the early 90s, developers did whatever the fuck they wanted with movie licenses, and considering how hard Fincher got reamed during production, it's safe to say Probe was given free rein to do what the fuck ever. Which explains how a movie with no weapons and one alien has several weapons and tons of aliens. Whatever. You have a very aggressively short timer hanging over your head while you try to rescue prisoners and find the exit. And that gets obnoxious real quick, even more so in the NES version that I'm choosing to ignore. People tend to blurt spoilers when a movie's old enough, but there may be some eggy rando teens watching this or whatever, so I'll just say if you haven't seen the actual movie, the ending of the games are completely different outside of the SNES version. I guess what I'm trying to say is the script issues kind of bled over into the video games. The Master System version is so much less stiff than the Genesis one. You can leap off ladders whenever you want. That shouldn't be such a thing you have to beg for. That's deranged. And I hate to gloss over this so quickly, but the Game Gear version is just the Master System version cramped down to fit your hands, and frankly, I'm covering 5 games today, so chop chop. Ideally, the perfect Alien 3 game would have taken the weapons from you and stuck with a single alien, like the movie. It would have been like a hybrid of the Super NES version with like the chores and the Metroid elements, and then kind of like what Alien Isolation became, but that's just me daydreaming. I'm told that the Amiga port, which I also have, is really decent, but I don't own an Amiga. The only one I've yet to collect is the Commodore one, and if anyone watching this finds that, hit me up. Speaking of Commodore, next is a game that originated there. Yuji Naka's Master System version of something I've adored since toddlerhood, Spy vs. Spy. Or at least they think he did this. Originally it was programmed by Mike Rydell under the First Star Software banner in 1984. Growing up, Spy vs. Spy was the only thing I gave a shit about in Mad Magazine, because no 4-year-old is going to go batshit crazy over a parody of broadcast news or that Beauty and the Beast show with Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton. Even talking about that shit makes me feel like fucking Dennis Miller. Spy vs. Spy I could grasp. When the same Walden books I was buying Mad at got the 2-pack of the Spy vs. Spy games for the Commodore, of course I flipped my shit. And as a result, it's sort of been etched in my DNA ever since. I can't help but give other ports a fair go and enter the Master System version, which has the same somewhat looser feel like the NES one does. Explaining this game is a pain in the ass. Just know that the split-screen 2-player thing was novel at the time, and you've got to find 4 items in a briefcase before finally busting through the exit. You can't carry more than 1 item without that briefcase, but somehow you carry unlimited traps, which can be set in the same furniture that hides the stuff you need to be finding. The Game Boy Color version doesn't let you hide traps where the items are contained, which to me is a game breaker. The controls for some of the mid-80s microcomputer versions are notably janky. For example, fighting is a little more complicated. You hold the fire button and push away then toward to jab, or up then down to bash. Add to that the fact that I was using a hand-me-down chewed-on Atari 2600 controller on my Commodore, and the controls of any other Spy vs. Spy game are going to feel luxurious. I think a lot of the appeal of this game was in the multiplayer, and that's under the impression you're up against someone with the skills to make competition worthwhile. Spy vs. Spy will always have a piece of my heart, but it's gonna be Marmite from most everyone else. Maybe instead of talking shit about it, I should act like its fans are some sort of elitist secret society, but I got shit to do. I feel like not putting Spy vs. Spy on the DS was a hell of a missed opportunity, because you could have done that one-card wireless play like they did with the DS Bomberman. Finally, I'm finishing up with one more game on the Master System. It's port of Alien Syndrome, and coincidentally, like, Giger's ghost is still probably rolling over in its grave or urn. And what's with, like, the weird little elementary school kid that you're playing as? Anyway, every mention of this game approaches it from the angle of its shortcomings. Of course, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, and articles from the time aren't terribly kind either. But it's capable, it's fun. The Master System version of Alien Syndrome was programmed by Sanritsu, who also made the NES port, and later spun off into Sims, who I name-dropped on the first Chop Shop. And Sega must have thought highly of them because they did the Mega Drive version of Tetris. Honestly, there are countless Master System arcade ports, and even some on the Genesis, that fail way harder than this does. Sick of enemies spawning where you are? Get better at it. Sick of the flip screen scrolling? You didn't bitch about it when Zelda did it. Sick of the cheap bosses? It's an 8-bit game. It's meant to be tough. Not only that, but you have YouTube at your disposal now if you want footage of how to defeat them. Sour fucking grapes aside, Alien Syndrome is great. However, the Game Gear version I'll be covering later, that's a whole different beast. I highly recommend turning the volume down and putting on the Lawnmower Man episode of How Did This Get Made, because that kind of makes both even better. Not that there's anything super wrong about the audio. I played with the FM soundtrack through the Mega SG, and I kind of wonder if the Master System would have done better in America if the FM sound unit came out over here, but that's a think piece that I'm not getting paid for. It seems like I'm going out of the way to defend the Master System one, but to be honest, over the course of the past half a year, I've played that more than I've played the arcade one, and I have the arcade one on that one PS3 comp. I think instead of getting bitter in my old age, I'm starting to chill out and resisting the urge to bitch about a 3-decade-old game that does what it says on the tin. I didn't complain a lot about the lack of a 2-player mode because, like, I grew up in the woods, so where am I going to find an arcade with Alien Syndrome and a second person that gives a shit? And despite what you just saw, there's more than one stage. Remind me not to be so lazy when I do the capture of the Game Gear version. That's all for today. Like and subscribe, and let's pretend the next episode will show up sooner than later. I'm going to read a letter sent in by one of the folks on my highest Patreon tier.